Okay guys, welcome to the short lesson now on parasocial relationships. This is now the very final part of the relationships topic area, and it's quite unique. It's very different to anything that we've ever done before. So all the relationships that we've looked at previously have been either romantic relationships, or in the last little section on virtual relationships, it could extend the theoretical ideas out to friendships. In this, we are looking at one-sided relationships. So a parasocial relationship, as you might be able to gather from the picture that I've given there, is kind of excessive levels of fandom. So parasocial interaction is, as I've already referred to, one-sided, unreciprocated relationships, and they are typically with a person from the public eye, from the media, somebody who is, for all intents and purposes, classed as a celebrity. So these are not romantic relationships by any stretch of the imagination. A lot of the time, as you can see here, a lot of the time the celebrity figure doesn't even know that the fan feels this way. So it is like intense fandom. So what normally characterises a parasocial relationship is that the individual in question will devote a huge amount of time and energy to developing that relationship. Remember, the person on the receiving end of it is normally unaware, but for a lot of the time these people are kind of like obsessed. However, for parasocial relationships, there are different levels, okay? So the kind of parasocial relationship that I've just been referring to is quite an intense one. However, what you'll probably be shocked to realise is that some of you actually have parasocial relationships. So the three levels of parasocial relationship, you can see them in your booklet if you've got it open to page 49 on this section, are entertainment social, intense personal, and borderline pathological. So what I've done for you now, because I'm not here this afternoon, is I've printed off the celebrity attitude scale, published in 2006, when this really became accessible for a lot of people and we started to see more parasocial relationships developing. So what I would like you to do now is just complete that scale. All you're doing is saying whether or not you strongly agree with a statement, which I think is 5, and if you strongly disagree with that statement, which is 1. There is no kind of like way of tallying it up. All you need to do, and I'll send you a screenshot of the way to score it in the group me a little bit later on, but all you need to do is work your way through the statements, and then you're looking out for specific statements, and if you have checked them at either a level 4 or a level 5, depending on what level that statement is an indication of, then there's probably going to be quite a number of you in here with entertainment social relationships and intense personal relationships. So if you want to do that for me now and then kind of resume the lesson. Okay, so obviously, for the purposes of the exam, you do need to know kind of like what the different levels of parasocial relationships are, which we're going to look at in a little bit more detail in a few moments. But it's also important at this stage to just get you thinking about why we might develop a parasocial relationship. As you've probably just established from filling in that questionnaire, some of you actually do have these. So where do they come from? Most people would argue that parasocial relationships simply develop initially out of kind of boredom or loneliness. A lot of people who have kind of entertainment social relationships to begin with are just kind of like seeking something to do of an evening. So kind of looking at your favourite celebrities on things like Snapchat or watching, I don't know, celebrity programmes is a really kind of like accessible means for everyone at the moment, okay? Given the way that we are, how all of this technology available to us, it is really, really easy to do. So, you know, that kind of thing, just you're a little bit bored, you just find out what, I don't know, your favourite celebrity, Kim Kardashian's doing on Snapchat. That's how it begins. So it might stem out of a little bit of loneliness, a little bit of boredom, okay? And it might, in some people's eyes, give them kind of a real relationship if they're lacking that in their own kind of reality. Now, all you've done at the moment is kind of have a look at what the different types of parasocial relationship are and fill in that scale. What I'm going to do for you now is I'm going to show you some video clips, or rather I'm going to post some video clips into the GroupMe now, so that you can watch 3 different levels of parasocial relationships. What I would like you to do is I've printed off a small slip of paper, and you just need to say which video you think is which, okay? So which one do you think is indicating the entertainment social, the intense personal, and the borderline pathological? Okay, so those video links are on already in our GroupMe. So again, if you just pause this now, watch those videos and then complete that little slip of paper, and I'll obviously be checking that in tomorrow's lesson. Okay, so hopefully you've had the opportunity now to watch those 3 video clips, and you can kind of get a feel for what those relationships involve at those different levels. So the entertainment social video clip, was just the Emmerdale kind of scenario. And what you'll probably realise is that a lot of us would like to do that. I know I personally have been on kind of like tours. So I went to New York and I did a tour which took you to all the kind of Sex and the City places. That would be entertainment social. It's just me and lots of other people out there seeking a little bit of extra kind of like knowledge or insight into something that you like, okay? So the entertainment social was the Emmerdale. The intense personal was the girl who was kind of like interested in Katy Perry, and whilst it might for some of you made you feel uncomfortable, all she was kind of saying there is why she admired her, and that it was obviously to quite an intense level, but it was what she kind of felt she associated with Katy Perry about, and why she thought she was such a influential figure. And then obviously the last one, the Britney Spears one, would be classed as borderline pathological. So what you need to do now is add those examples in to the left-hand side of your table on page 46, just so that when you're revising, you kind of recall those videos. And we need to add these descriptions in that is on the screen at the moment to page 46. So we're going to start with entertainment social. And you can see the descriptors for entertainment social are as follows. It is the least intense level of celebrity worship. And this is what I was referring to a few minutes ago, that it's basically just celebrities being some source of entertainment. Then what that extends out to is kind of talking to your mates about them, maybe following them on, I don't know, some sort of internet mediums, so Snapchat, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and then watching programs about them on TV, maybe recording programs about them on TV. It's quite a safe level of parasocial relationship. So if you just want to copy that in now, so you've got a nice description. Okay, so moving on then to the intense personal. Obviously, this is a deeper level of involvement. And as you saw in that Katy Perry video, they start to develop quite intense feelings towards that person. Normally out of admiration, like we saw with her, it's normally because they truly think that the person is worthy of all this attention, and they associate with something about that person, okay? So they start to develop these thoughts. Then obviously, if that's not enough for them and it's not satisfying them anymore, we might see them shifting into more of a borderline pathological relationship, whereby you've got the strongest level of celebrity worship. Their fantasies now, their thoughts about these celebrities are no longer developing. They are absolutely uncontrollable urges. So they can't they can't control them. They think about them all the time. They get sidetracked. Often sexual fantasies that they are in a relationship of some sort with these people, and in a lot of cases, and this sounds really weird, fantasies about hurting them, and that can extend out to killing them sometimes. And then if they can't control those fantasies, sometimes borderline pathological behaviour comes forward into their real life, and they actually might engage in illegal extreme behaviours such as stalking them, breaking into their house, stealing items, possibly attacking them, trying to contact them through kind of like email or internet sources. So because those fantasies are just now so intense, then that tends to show itself in reality. So at this stage then, all we've got is the descriptions. So I asked you about 10 minutes ago where this might come from. What we're going to look at in the remaining bit of parasocial relationships is the two theories behind the development of parasocial relationships. And the first one is known as the absorption addiction model. Now, it states that basically, as we've already referred to, a parasocial relationship stems from a lack of relationships in their own life to begin with. They might be in relationships, but they might be incredibly unhappy. They might be bored. They might be missing something, essentially, all right? The absorption addiction model comes from the same idea as addiction to anything else. So why does somebody start smoking, or why does somebody start drinking, or why does somebody start taking drugs, or kind of getting obsessed with the gym or eating or anything like that? Normally it's because there is a hole that they are trying to fill. There is something missing. For these people, it just happens to be a celebrity, a parasocial relationship. So what you tend to see is that the absorption will begin first, all right? That's what we start to see in these people. So they have a weak sense of personal identity, and they find that kind of following these celebrities through internet means just gives them a bit something to preoccupy themselves. It allows them kind of like a source, a cathartic sense of release, whereby they can focus all of their unhappy energies possibly towards that person. Now, people who get absorbed, they're probably going to fit into the entertainment social category. If that then becomes a little bit deeper, then we're moving through into the intense personal. The absorption addiction model states that, as with any addictive behaviour, the absorption is simply not enough. If you think about it, any addiction starts at quite a moderate level, but then you become addicted, you become dependent to that thing, and the hit is no longer strong enough for you. So if you imagine when you start, let's say taking drugs, you might have one kind of like line of cocaine or whatever, and initially that would be enough for you, but then the effects start to wear off and you take more and more and more over time. That's what happens here. These people are totally absorbed, but that absorbed kind of nature and following the celebrity is not enough. It does not satisfy their craving. So that's when they start to get the addiction beginning. So this leads to the more extreme behaviours, and that's when we start to see those patterns of obsessive or delusional thinking. So that's the absorption addiction model. What I would like you to do now is I would like you to look at these 6 examples, and I'd like you to figure out which ones would be examples of absorption therefore, and which one would be examples of addiction. And what I would like to see in your booklets tomorrow is that on page 47 you have actually made an attempt to write those in, okay? So actually I want to see them kind of around your booklets, pop those in there. So that's the first model, and to be totally honest, this bit of psychology is a bit like pop psychology, but that model for me makes perfect sense. It is just an addiction that develops and gets out of hand. The second theory is based on a theory that you're already familiar with, which is attachment theory. Now, we said that these people might be missing relationships in their own kind of real life. Attachment theory of parasocial relationships states that through developing a parasocial relationship, they're actually satisfying some of the criteria of a normal relationship. Yes, it's only one-sided, but they get from that celebrity some of the things that we would get from a normal kind of like infantile or childlike behaviour or attachment with a primary caregiver. So if you recall, the features of a primary attachment are proximity-seeking behaviour. So you always want to feel close or connected to that person. If you are not close to that person, then you protest at that. So if for whatever reason they disappear or they're not accessible to you anymore, you will find that upsetting. You can already see that these people, that's yes and yes. They do want to be close to them. And if that person disappears for whatever reason, that will create intense feelings of instability. What it also gives them is a secure base. So even though they might be having problems in their real world relationships, the secure base is the fact that they've always got this celebrity relationship to go back to. When everything else goes horribly wrong, they've always got that celebrity, that one-sided relationship that makes them feel comfortable, and they can just engage with finding out more about that person, watch all the videos on the internet. It will always be there. Okay, so as you can see then, these celebrity relationships do actually satisfy some of these criteria. And in your booklet on page 47, what we've given you is an example of how that happens. And all you need to do for your exam is actually explain kind of why it does satisfy that criteria. So if you just want to pop these in for me now into your booklet. So proximity-seeking behaviour, we've already said, they do want to be physically close to the celebrity, and if they can't be physically close to the celebrity, then it means accessing them at a kind of psychological level, but a lot of celebrities nowadays, they're really, really easily accessible at all times. Fans can be incredibly close to their chosen celebrity all the time. I mean, one of the most dangerous platforms I think that exists is Snapchat or Instagram, because taking pictures of where you are, it tells people where you are. So if there are any fans out there who kind of want to be physically close to you, they can get to you. It's readily available information. So they are kind of like enabling that proximity-seeking behaviour in parasocial relationships. The secure base, we said, does provide them with a sense of security, and it's always going to be there. So remember, some of these people might be incredibly lonely people who don't have real relationships. They might not have the intimacy from a partner, and they're not going to get rejected by a celebrity. For a lot of them, it won't ever culminate in physical contact. So they're never, ever going to get rejected by this person. It can be one-sided for the entirety of their lives, and it's just a little kind of comfort blanket that they can always return to. And then obviously disruption, if for whatever reason that celebrity were to disappear or kind of become unavailable to them, they do find it incredibly hard. So there were a lot of fans at the beginning of this year when Ed Sheeran disappeared off social media for a while, and I was reading stories of people kind of really fretting and really worrying because they needed to know what he was doing all of the time. So we've got where it comes from, different levels, absorption addiction model, and the attachment theory as well. If you turn it over, we got a tiny little bit more about it being usually insecure resistance that develop it, because insecure resistance, remember, if they're the really weird kind of like attachment style where they crave that security and they crave that intimacy, but then they also don't like getting too close to people because of fear of rejection. So this parasocial relationship enables in their mind, quite a good relationship, because it gives them intimacy, it gives them closeness, but they're never going to get rejected. So it does satisfy their kind of needs. Pages 48 and 49 you will see that there is some research, all right, and it's quite convincing research. So I want you to read through that research, okay? You've got one little blank to fill in on page 48, which shouldn't be difficult. I want you to read through that research, and I'm going to ask you some quick fire comprehension questions on that in tomorrow's lesson. And all I'm going to leave you with, on page 49 is a little bit of how to answer the methodology point. We've done it enough times for you now to be able to piece this together, but if you can't do it, then these are some of the words that you would need to refer to in that methodological criticism with Schiappa. So if you can do all that for me now, you'll also see, guys, here in your box at the front, which I've left for this afternoon, there are some quick exam questions for you to do. So the first side is application questions, second side is 3 really straightforward comprehension questions. All of this will be checked tomorrow, and whilst last week when I was off, and apologies for that, most of you did do all of the work, there were kind of 3-4 people who didn't do what I'd asked them to do. Warning to those people, if you don't do this work today, this afternoon, you are not going to be coming into the lesson tomorrow. I will name and shame you, okay? You know exactly who you are. You are no different to anybody else. There was one person in this class who sat for 3 hours and did absolutely nothing, and is inexcusable. So I do not want a repeat performance of that. So please, please make sure that all of this is done. The other thing that you've got to do for me, if this gets completed, is your essays on factors affecting attraction are also in your box at the front with a mark scheme attached to them. Now I have marked them or annotated them. What you need to do as part of your overnight work is you need to tell me which mark you would give yourself. Based on my feedback, what level would you put your work at, what mark would you give it, and a justification, okay? So I want everybody to do that. You can either do it now or it is your overnight homework, but same as what I've just said with this stuff, it needs to be done for tomorrow. No excuses. Okay, if there are any questions with any of this material, then obviously get in touch. I am going to be at that funeral this afternoon, but I will be able to contact you this evening, okay? All right, guys, hopefully that's going to be all right for you, and I'll see you tomorrow.